All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's now 12:02. As I mentioned, we have about 42 people registered for the session here today, and we're talking about engaging online audiences. So before we dive in, I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and then I'll hand it over to Ryan to introduce himself. I am Danae Wolf. I am the Educational Technology Specialist here at Ohio State University Extension, and I focus primarily on digital engagement methods for our Extension faculty and staff. So this includes a lot of content on how do we engage our online audiences. So we're going to be talking about a variety of things here today. I'll let Ryan introduce himself, and then I'll jump back into how the session is going to be organized.
Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone from Purdue and Ohio State. I'm Ryan Weinkoop. I'm the Educational Technology Advisor for Purdue Extension. So I work with our entire system, people of all different responsibilities to figure out how in the world to use all the technology we have available to us, both in our teaching responsibilities, we have those, but also just making work a little more efficient. And I'm in that position just for the next few days because I'm starting a new position on campus. So I'll share my information with you, but I might not respond after Thursday.
And I'm very sad about that. There's not many ed tech specialists in Extension across the nation. Ryan is one of the few colleagues that I've gotten to know in the last couple of years working in ed tech, and I've been thrilled to have him as a partner. And we've done national conference sessions and a variety of things together. So sad to see him go. So for this session here today, we're going to be talking about engaging online audiences, and we've kind of divided this into three unique sections. So the first one is we're going to be talking about how to engage people via Zoom. So this would include both Zoom meetings like we're on today, but also Zoom webinars. And then Ryan's going to get into different ways to engage audiences both online and in face-to-face events using a variety of different tools like polling. And then we're going to bring it back to talking about engaging folks using social media storytelling. So we're gonna kick it off by talking about Zoom. And I understand that those of you at Purdue, not everybody has a Zoom account, but I know that Ryan and his team have been using Zoom in sort of some formal ways. You can sign up for a free Zoom account, and I think you're limited to 40-minute sessions on the free account. Those of us at Ohio State now, everybody across the university has a Zoom Pro account, which is awesome. And there are two primary different ways to use Zoom. There's Zoom meetings, and then there's Zoom webinars. Here at Ohio State, we have access to both. By default, everybody has access to meetings, and I think we can do meetings now for up to, is it 300 people? Which is kind of absurd, to be honest. Like to have a meeting with 300 people and everybody has video and audio rights, it can get kind of chaotic. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so if I cough, I will try to mute myself. So meetings are up to 300 people. I think on the basic account, if you sign up for a free account, I think you're limited to maybe 50 people on that free one. And then we also have Zoom webinars, which are a little bit more formal, and your participants will not have video and audio rights, but a lot of the engagement features of Zoom remain the same. So what engagement features have you all used in Zoom meetings or webinars before, either as an instructor or as a participant? And again, for those of you with microphones, you can just unmute yourself. This is kind of meant to be informal, so just chat with us, or you can type into the chat box and communicate with us that way too. So Katie said chat. Yes, that's probably one of the most popular ones, right? The chat box is a great engagement feature. And I think that it's sometimes underutilized in presentations that I've been in and in meetings. Usually every time I teach even a formal webinar where my participants don't have like video audio rights, I will ask people, hey, type into the chat box a response to this prompt or a response to this question. That's a wonderful feature. And then everybody should be getting experience with that here. I'm gonna show you how to get experience with some of the other features in Zoom as well, including the whiteboard feature, polling, as Katie mentioned. We're gonna break out into breakout rooms with it, which is an awesome feature of Zoom meetings. So I'll talk about that. So Katie said chat and polls. Anybody else? I'll let you type into the chat box here for another minute or so. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to, or what a Zoom poll looks like. And I will say that if you're going to use a Zoom poll, does everybody I don't know if you guys all see it. I think you probably have to be a host in order to see this feature at the bottom of your screen. But on the bottom of my screen, I have a big button that says polling. And if I click that, it basically launches all of the polls that I have created. If you are the host of a Zoom meeting, it will allow you to launch a poll, or you can create a poll. Any poll that you create, you actually have to do through the web browser of Zoom. You can't do it directly in a meeting. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll question that we have here, which is a timely question that Ryan and I decided this morning was a good option for us. So it's, what is your favorite Halloween candy? And you have 10 options to choose from. We tried to include some of the more popular options that we thought, but I'm seeing a lot of people click other. So once you give us your responses, I will roll a penny.
I'm concerned that people aren't selecting Almond Joy.
I'm not. I was telling Ryan earlier, I hate coconut, so Almond Joys are one of my like worst. Oh, there, was that you, Ryan, that clicked that?
No, that wasn't me.
Okay.
I'm not allowed, since I'm a co-host, I can't vote. So that's something to keep in mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So for those of you that said
that.
other, looks like Katie said Hershey's cookies and cream. What are the others?
And you can just type those into the chat
Yeah, you can
box,
just
or
type them
again,
in
open
there.
up your mic and you can use that. And I'll give you another few seconds and I'll end the poll, and then I will allow you to see the results. So as the host, you have the option of ending the poll. You can choose to display the results so that everybody can see them, or you can keep them private so that nobody can see them. You can also allow people to vote anonymously or not anonymously. So you have a couple different options there, but this is a great way to engage people in a Zoom meeting or a Zoom webinar, because it just gives them the option to engage with you. So I'm going to go ahead and share the results. And in my opinion, unsurprisingly, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup won. It's everybody's favorite. This is my favorite. This is the one that I'm stealing from my children's pumpkins this week. Our trick or treat was on Saturday. So attendees should all be seeing that. You can see we included a couple options there that got no votes. Three Musketeers, which was a surprising one. I love that. Candy corn, apples, a toothbrush from your neighborhood dentist, and then other. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that. So when you do a poll, you can ask, I think it's up to maybe 10 or 20 questions in a single poll, and you can have a certain number of polls in each meeting or webinar. So basically, your poll might consist of like 5 questions, and once you launch that poll, your attendees will get to answer those 5 questions right off the bat. So they'll be prompted to respond to question number 2 right after they've responded to question number 1. So you can have an individual poll that just has 1 question, or you can have a poll that has 5 questions or 10 questions, and people will be able to answer those subsequently. So that's kind of up to you. It's just a really fun, simple way to get people to engage with you. Any questions about polling? It's a pretty basic feature of Zoom.
And we'll mention it was, hard to do. It's hard to do polls on the fly. In Zoom, you do have to do them it's better if you do them in advance. So you do have to kind of plan that out.
Yes, you do. That's a very, very important thing to mention, actually, because if you're going to do it on the fly, again, you're going to click create poll, and it's going to open up your web browser. You're going to have to type in all of your options and your questions. So it's not quite as intuitive. So the next feature I want to share with you is a whiteboard feature. And when you're in Zoom as a host, all you have to do is click share, and then you should have a whiteboard option. And in fact, I think everybody here should have the share option in the bottom of their Zoom interface. So you click share, you click whiteboard. I'm going to share this. And now I think everybody should have the option of now participating or writing on this whiteboard. So let me know if you're seeing that. And because of this, oh, there we go. I was gonna say, I lost my chat. So everybody should be seeing that. Do you have the option of actually typing something in or drawing something?
Not that I'm aware of.
So you can see it, but you're not seeing. So everybody should be able to write that. So let me go to options and see if I can fix that for you. So I assume that's you, Ryan.
No, that's Michelle. Michelle is sharing.
Oh, okay.
So one person can use the whiteboard to sort of annotate and draw. And then I think I can request control. So right now I'm requesting remote control of Michelle's screen. And so I could monitor it. Yeah. And then you can use
Okay.
annotate. Um,
Okay, so it looks like one person can do that at a time. I thought
yeah.
in the past I've had situations where multiple people could do that at the same time.
If you, yeah, click, like Michelle said, click view options and annotate. It's a hidden feature.
Where are you to view options?
Up at the top. So as
Oh,
everyone
view
see here, says
options.
you are viewing so and so's screen. It'll say,
Annotate.
yeah.
There you go. So if you click annotate, then you have the option of typing stuff in. So again, up. Thank you for that. Thank you for finding that. So you should be able to go up to view options, and then you have the option of annotating. And you, again, you have a text box, you have draw feature, you can use a mouse. So if you wanted to highlight different things, you could choose the mouse feature. You could put an arrow on here so you could highlight. You have a couple different options there. And especially in like a meeting format, it's kind of a fun way to engage people. You can also, like, I think you can take a screen cap of this as a host. So you can save that whiteboard for future reference as well. So that's kind of another one. I will be honest in saying I don't think I've ever actually used the whiteboard feature other than to tell people that it's an option to use for engagement. So I have the big option up at the top that says save it, and it'll save this whole whiteboard. So it's kind of cool if you're working with like a smaller group. If you have 300 people though that are all contributing to this, it would probably get pretty messy pretty quickly. But that option exists for you. So the next engagement option that I wanted to share with Zoom, and I'll just spend a few more minutes here on Zoom, is the breakout room option. So type into the chat box for me and let me know if you've ever used the Zoom breakout rooms, because this is kind of a fun thing to do. Seeing some people say no, no, no. Okay, well, cool. Greg said yes, yeah. So breakout rooms they're kind of cool because what you can do is, and you can do this basically randomly, or you can actually assign specific people to specific breakout rooms. So if I wanted everybody to break out, and we have 18 people on the call, so let's say I want to break out into 6 groups, 3 people per group, I would tell Zoom that. I have a big breakout room option for me as the host of today's meeting. And the 3 people would basically break out into a little Zoom meeting just on their own. Nobody else could see them or hear them. They could have their own little conversation. And then I would give them a prompt and say, in your little breakout, talk about XYZ. They would break out, and then I would invite everybody to come back and share what they discussed. So I'm going to break you guys out for 1 minute just to show you what this looks like. And I'm actually going to break you out into, we'll do 6 groups of 3. And I'm going to ask you, between the 3 of you in your room, to agree on what's the best Halloween candy. So it's going to be like a fast debate here. Like, you're going to have to like make a case for the best Halloween candy. And then I'm going to invite you to come back, and you're going to have to share in the chat box what you decided. So we'll see how this works. Again, you're only going to have a minute to make this debate. So I'm going to create 6 breakout rooms, 3 participants per room. And now here you're going to go. Welcome back. Some people must be in like hot debate because they're not coming back. All right. Now we have everybody back. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So how was that?
That was fun.
So I'll tell you real quickly before I ask for you to give me your debate answer. So what I would see as the host is I could see a whole list of everybody's breakout room. And then as the host, I could actually join any of your breakout rooms. So let's say you did this with like students or something. You would be able to like break out, and maybe you did like a 20-minute breakout session. As the host, you could like join their meeting, kind of talk about their discussion, join in, and then leave and kind of just pinball back and forth between other ones. So some people said I didn't have a microphone, so it's a bit difficult to communicate with the group, so no chat. Nobody had a chat feature in their breakout room.
We used it. Just one thing to be aware of is that the chat also leaves us with the breakout room. So you can see your chat in the breakout room, but when you send it to everyone, it follows us back in the main room. So if there are like private discussions going on, everybody's going to see that.
Oh, that's interesting, because I'm not seeing any show up in my feed.
Okay, so do you see the chat does not stay with the breakout room, or is that?
I wonder if because it was only sent to private people, does it say privately next to their name in your chat box?
It says everyone. That's what's confusing. So I can
Interesting.
see it, and I bet the two people in my breakout group can see it.
Yeah, but I
I
can't
suspect
see it.
maybe everyone else doesn't see it.
Maybe, but that's interesting to note. So real fast before we move on, what did you guys determine was the best Halloween candy? Did anybody have like a debate about it? Almond Joy.
Good answer.
All chocolate from room 4. Chocolate's always a good answer. Snickers. All right, so just a nice little feature. Works really, really well, again, if you like have little assignments that you want to give to your group. And we often think about that in terms of like, this would work well for like a student group, but it would work well with adult learners as well. You could always use features like this. So the last thing that I want to mention here briefly with Zoom is a lot of times I often use like very, very simple things like the raise hand feature in a webinar, which you don't have access to raise hand in a Zoom meeting. But if you go under, you should be able to open up participants and see all the participants. And if you're on the participant box, you have the option of saying yes, no, go slower, go faster. You can provide a thumbs up, a thumbs down. You can wave. You can say I need a break, which is the little coffee cup, or you can put the little clock up, which basically says I'm stepping away. And this is another really great way to engage with people, because you could say like, hey, how's everybody doing right now? And they could give you a thumbs up. Or you could say, hey, do you like, here's a yes or no question, and you could ask them to respond and they could give it a yes or a no. You can only see those things when the participant window is open, and everybody should be able to open that on their respective computer. So to finalize the Zoom conversation, any questions, number 1, and you can go ahead and type those into the chat box or just ask them aloud. But Zoom is like one of the best online engagement tools that we have access to, particularly if you have access to it. And I recognize that those of you at Purdue don't all have pro accounts. Those of us at Ohio State do have pro accounts, which is wonderful. Take advantage of this tool because it's amazing. And if you have any questions, for those of you at Ohio State, feel free to reach out to me and I can help work through those for you. And if you're interested in creating like a webinar or a webinar series, we have a process that you can use to request a webinar license, and I'll walk you through that too if you have questions. So feel free to reach out. And with that, I'm going to bump this conversation over to Ryan, and he's going to give us lots of other tools to think about.
All right. This is a quick sound check. You can use the thumbs up feature or your raise hand feature to let me know you can hear me. Oh, good, people can hear me. When I got bumped to the breakout room, I lost my sound for some reason. So okay, we're back. All right. So I'm going to talk about, so Zoom as the webinar platform is a great way to engage with your learners, participants, whatever you want to call them. So when I talk about learners or participants, just imagine who the audience is that you would normally interact with, and use your imagination. So I'm going to talk about tools that you can use absolutely in a webinar outside of Zoom, but you can also use them in your face-to-face activities and workshops, because we do a lot of those in Extension as well. So I'm going to share some of those, and we're actually going to participate in some of them. So I'm going to bring up my screen here just a second. Oops. Go to my share screen. All right. So one of the common things you probably see when you go in a face-to-face workshop, maybe if you have people turn their cameras on in their webinar, you might see some of this, people reading their newspaper or falling asleep or talking to each other or not even paying attention, trying to figure out what they're going to watch on Netflix tonight. So there's a lot of different tools we can use to keep them engaged before, during, and after the webinar. And so we're going to talk about, I'm only going to cover 3 of those. There are a ton available, and you've probably used some of them before. So in the chat, as I advance slides here, if you have used any sort of polling software or polling tools before, go ahead and type in the chat what you've used. And I apologize if you hear some background noise. They've decided to mow the yard outside of our building now. So Kahoot and Top Hat are great. Yep. None so far. Great. So we often think of audience engagement. You know, here at Purdue, we have these clickers that they use. We have these clickers that they used, but there's a lot of other tools out there where people can actually use their cell phone or any device that they might have. And so we need to think about audience engagement as a continuum. Don't just ask people what they're learning once they're there, but we can use it before, during, and after. So when you think about using it before, you could, for example, create a poll to send to people, to your participants, your learners in advance to figure out what they might already know about the topic. That helps you make the activity, the workshop, more meaningful to them. For example, if you're going to do, a seed starting workshop and you ask questions about, the correct soil media to start seeds, and all your participants already know all the questions you asked about that, they're going to be really bored when you're talking about soil media. Because they already know that. So you can use this as a chance for you to make your learning opportunity more engaging, more meaningful to the participants. And then, so like I said there, it gives you a starting point and a potential to rework your presentation. During, of course, we already probably do this a lot in Extension. We can use it to check for learning. So you can do a poll really quickly. We already use the polling feature in Zoom to gather feedback. So you can use that. You can do your quizzes before, or your pre and post. But you can also use some of these tools as stimulus variation to break up your webinar. Instead of just sitting there and reading a PowerPoint like I'm doing right now, you can stop and do some activities. This presentation I'm giving now is normally given in person. So I've given it in person at Purdue quite a few times, but you can also do some of the similar tools online. But due to time, I couldn't do all of them. So normally at this point, I would stop and I would do a quiz game. But I'm not showing that tool today, so you don't get that. But you can also think about using gamification. So again, you can use the breakout rooms, and there's a lot of tools available where you can create sort of a quiz or a game based on your content during your webinar or in person, face-to-face, break them out into groups, and you can have teams that can compete to answer questions about things. So I would do that during the face-to-face presentation. But think about using your audience engagement as a chance to break up the monotony, but also to engage with the learners and figure out what it is they're learning. And afterwards, of course, we also do this in Extension. Use it as your post-evaluation. So use it for that chance to get overall feedback about the workshop. How did it go? What did you like? What didn't you like? You can maybe even use it as that summative assessment. So what did you learn sort of thing, the pre-post. You can use it as that. So all the tools I'm showing you today could be used for that. So remember, as I'm showing you these tools, don't just use them to be flashy. The point of educational technology is to enhance the learning process. So don't try and cram one of these tools into your pre-existing presentation just to look cool, to look fancy. think about the purpose of it and make sure that there's a reason for you to use this polling, that it will be meaningful for the learners, but also maybe make it a little more efficient for you to gather feedback. So I'm showing you these tools, but it does not mean you have to start using them immediately. So let's take a look at a few. Poll Everywhere, you've probably all seen this. I'm going to demonstrate this today because there's a few things to pay attention to. So Poll Everywhere can be free. However, you only get up to 25 responses for the poll. But if you sign up for the higher ed plan, you get 40 responses. So I'll talk about that in just a second. Poll Everywhere offers 25 different question types. So pretty much everything you would need from, they have gamification in there, they have a leaderboard kind of thing, an up-down vote, multiple choice. So let's take a look at one. Let me get that started. So to join it, you see the link up here at the top. You can just visit that link there from your phone, from your browser, at your computer. You have a couple options. So you can just visit pollev.com/RyanW318. There's a number of features in Poll Everywhere. You do have to pay to upgrade to get some of them. For example, moderation. So for example, for those of you with 4-H backgrounds, if you're going to use this with youth, you might not want them to be able to respond anonymously because they can get ornery and you wouldn't be able to moderate responses. So that's something to consider. So you can just take a chance here to answer this question. What is your favorite topping? So this is an example multiple choice, and you'll see the results in real time. Okay, and what I'm presenting in Google Slides, and Poll Everywhere has a plugin that you can automatically integrate your Google or your Poll Everywhere polls into your slides, so there's not that awkward fumbling around where you have to stop your Google Slides, open up another browser, start your Poll Everywhere poll. So it makes it more seamless, saves a little bit of time. It also has a plugin for PowerPoint, so if you use PowerPoint instead, you can install that Poll Everywhere plugin. It makes it a little nicer. And the other nice thing is, if you're going to do back-to-back polls, you can actually, I'll give you a few more seconds for people to respond here. So I've got 3 polls here. It looks like most everyone has responded, so we'll go on to the next poll. Oops, there we go. Oops, sorry. Working on Wi-Fi, there's a bit of a lag. There you go. So this is an example of a this will be a word cloud kind of thing. And so you see here, I've also offered the second option to participate. So if you're using this in person, you can have people text in their response. It's a little bit clunky, but they can also visit this link from their cell phone. So this is an example to get some feedback in words, so you can see what your participants are thinking. It's like computer. Someone said Ryan. Social media. So also keep in mind, if you do a split word, it splits that word up. So someone probably put social media, so it counted that as 2 different words. And Star Trek would be the same. So that's an example of that. If you didn't get a chance to respond, that's okay. We're going to move on for the sake of time. You can also do multiple choice with pictures. So if you've got, options for different plants, if you want to do this as a quiz, you could put, 4 pictures up there and say, which one of these is a marigold? And they can select the marigold or whichever. So that's just an example. So there's different ways to modify those questions. I'm going to stop my share for just a second. Actually, you know what? I'll wait and do that at the end. Never mind. So that's an example of Poll Everywhere. A number of different question types. But here's my extension hack for you. They do have, like I mentioned, that higher education pricing that's free. So if you automatically upgrade with your .edu email address, you can get 40 participants per poll, which is great because a lot of our smaller workshops, that'll work just fine. Even 25 would be fine. But to get that free boost for 40 responses for free is a great deal. So be sure to check that out and upgrade to the higher ed plan that's available in Poll Everywhere. The next one is direct poll. So this is very similar. It's very basic, bare bones, nothing fancy about it, but it's a simple multiple choice option. And this is great for in-person or in webinars if you don't like the Zoom polling feature. So to join, I will copy and paste this link. Oops, sorry. I'll copy and paste this link into the chat to make it easier for you to join. And I will log in here. So I'll log in so you can see the back end of what it looks like. It's kind of clunky. You have to get my notes up here. You have to create the poll in advance. You can only do multiple choice, and it works by links. So it'll send you an email with links. Once you figure out how that all works, it's a lot easier. Uh-oh, invalid poll. I clicked the wrong link. Hold on just a second. Let me try that one. Poll results. Let me just do this. Technical difficulties. You can join with a QR code too. Hold on just a second. Okay, now I'll share my screen here. So this is what direct poll looks like on the back end. You can see it's very basic questions. So I'm just going to click start, and you all should, if you visited the poll, you should have your polling started. So I can click on that here. And so you should see a poll that looks like this. So you'll be able to vote. And then if you have multiple questions, you do have to automatically advance to the next question. So this would probably be good for like a pre-post kind of thing. Whoops. So so on the back end, you can see how many people have voted. So you can get that, the analytics from that. It's not advancing. There we go. There we go. Okay. And so you can do multiple selections. So it's multiple choice, but you can have single choice or multiple choice. So again, this is very, very basic, bare bones, multiple choice, but this is completely free. So that makes it nice, and you can do up to 10 questions. The other thing to be aware of is these polls do expire in 30 days, but if you're just doing a quick and easy poll to get feedback on something, you can download the information, have it available, and you're good to go. But again, like I said, it takes some getting used to, but it's free and allows quite a few responses. I think it allows up to 500 responses. So if you have a big event where you want to gather feedback, this would be the tool for you if you're just doing multiple choice for feedback. And then you can share the results. So you can put up the results tab in live in real time so you can see. So people can select multiple choices there, and that's what it looks like. So that's direct poll. Let me get back. And Slido. So this one's becoming pretty popular. They also just rolled out an integration with Google Slides as well. I'm not using that today, but to join, it's very easy. You can just go to slido.com, and then you'll enter code 1268. So I'm going to open up a new window here. Oops. And log in. So with Slido, it's very basic. You can have people ask questions. They can upvote if they're really interested in that. You can also have them share ideas. So you can, let me share my screen here so you can see what this looks like. So you can put this up so people can see. You can do a Q&A kind of thing. So I can move along. So if you've joined the poll, you can join at slido.com, enter code 1268. You can do like open-ended type questions, so you all could respond to that. This is the free version. There's a paid version, so if you want to be able to moderate, to delete answers, things like that, you would have to upgrade. But you can see how many people are responding. They can respond to the poll. And then you can also do polling. So you can have multiple choice again, just like we did in direct poll. Slido is nice, and again, this is the free version. I could see value in upgrading for sure. So if you're able to do that, if your institution allows you to, definitely would be interested in doing that. So you can see people voting here, you can see in real time. So that's Slido. It's very easy for the participant to join. So that makes it nice because they can join, they can join from any device, so tablet, laptop, smartphone. So that makes it nice too, because it allows some diversity in ability to join. So I want to show you real quick. I do have, like I mentioned, a few more tools available, and I'll drop this link in the chat and I'll leave this up, but I've created a page on my little blog here. And I'll drop this here so you can check it out. There's a handout, and I've got, I think, 6 or 7 other tools. But I also cover here some things to consider as far as how to choose a tool. There's a lot of different things to consider when you choose. So we've talked about how many people can join, how many responses you can collect. If you have a big audience, a large webinar with 300 people, you want to make sure you don't choose poll everywhere, because then you'll only get 40 responses. If you're doing this out in a county or somewhere in the state, is there good Wi-Fi cell signal? What's your backup plan if there is a tech malfunction? So just some things to consider, and this is available in a handout. Feel free to download it, use it, whatever, I don't care. But then I've got those tools here where I've broken it down by cost and the maximum number of responses, question types, the pros and cons in my opinion. And there's some other tools here that I didn't cover. Mentimeter would be one you want to check out. Also, if you use Google Slides, Google Q&A is nice as well. Any questions on any of those tools? Feel free to keep asking them in the chat. Otherwise, if not, I will turn it back over to Danae to talk about our next section.
Thank you so much, Ryan. That was great. I always love learning about new polling tools, because for a long time we were just kind of like, well, poll everywhere is a good option. And then if you need bigger responses than 40, then like Top Hat, which is one of our OSU ones, but Top Hat is not, in my opinion, a terribly intuitive program to use for polling, and it's very specific to like student and like classroom stuff. So really, really appreciate some of the other options there that you provided for us. So now we're going to head into engagement on things like social media and some of our less formal learning platforms. And of course, most people wouldn't consider social media to be a learning platform, but it can be if you're using it in the right way. So by raise of hand, or if you just want to kind of do a thumbs up for me or type into the chat, how many of you are using social media for extension work? And I see some people raising their hand. So what platforms are you using? Of course, there's so many different like social media platforms these days for your office. Facebook and Instagram, two of the popular ones. And of course, Facebook owns Instagram. Facebook in Knox County. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So I wanted to kind of focus this conversation, and a lot of people are saying Facebook, which tends to be the common one. And in fact, for the last few years that I've been teaching educational technology and digital engagement, when I talk about social media, I always like ask people, what platform makes the most sense for your audience? And that's the key, is to identify who your audience is, right? Because a lot of people just want to instantly say, well, I'm going to sign up for this new social media platform because it's the newest, biggest thing, or because my supervisor told me to use it. And I always share this story. Those of you at Ohio may have heard me say this before, but I was once teaching a digital engagement program, and somebody asked me, it was sort of a twofold question. Number one, how can we use Twitter to engage like different audiences? But they were like, most people in our county aren't using Twitter. So how can we teach them how to use it and then also use it for the purpose of distributing information that way? And I just couldn't help but think like, that's probably not the best route to go. Like if nobody in your county is using it, then why are you trying to convince them to use it as a platform to deliver content? You really have to think about who your audience is and where they're spending time. And if you look at the statistics, and I'll type into the chat box real quickly, Pew Research is where I find a lot of my up-to-date social media statistics. Who's using which platform, broken down by socioeconomic demographics, as well as a variety of other demographic information. And it's really helpful because if you know you're trying to reach like adult learners versus youth versus other demographics, it's just one of the best resources for information. So I'm going to go ahead and share this real quick PowerPoint here. And we're going to talk about a model that I use for storytelling, which is a model that I developed recently called the LIFE model. And the LIFE model, thank you for the link there, Ryan. The model that I use is called the LIFE model, and it basically stands for learn, interpret, frame, and engage. So the first portion of this is to think about who are your audiences, right? Instead of just saying, hey, we're going to use Twitter because my supervisor said I should be on Twitter, you should think, well, who is it that I'm trying to reach, and what are my objectives with that specific audience? And from there, you can identify what it is that you're trying to do. So you learn about your audience, you interpret their needs. And some of you might know that I started my career working as an interpretive park ranger for the National Park Service. So interpretation runs very deep into the education and outreach that I offer. And what is interpretation exactly? I define it as the emotional or intellectual connection that connects an audience to a particular topic or resource. So it's basically the why. Why does my audience care about this topic? So if we're talking about, for example, I like to use the example of pesticide safety. If we're talking about pesticide safety, why are my backyard gardeners going to care about this topic? And how might that differ from the farmers that I'm trying to reach? Those are two entirely different audiences, and you're probably going to teach them in different ways, and you're probably going to frame your message in a different way to reach each of those audiences. And that's our next step here, is to frame your message. So how can you frame the message to reach that particular audience? So if you're trying to tell gardeners, be safer with pesticides, and it could be how to store them, how to apply them, what safety gear you need to be wearing, or proper protective gear do you need to be wearing when applying pesticides in your own backyard. It could be the amount that you're applying. It could be whether or not you need to apply them at all. How might that message differ for those backyard gardeners, and how might it differ for the farmers who might be using this in a business to make money? And I'm going to give you all the opportunity to think about those ideas in whatever context might make sense for you. So also in the framing, you have to think about, what is your objective? What is it that you're trying to do? And how can you frame your message or your post or content that you're going to be posting on social media with that objective in mind? So you might be looking for a change of awareness, a change of behavior, or that change of condition. How are we going to reach those objectives? And then finally, we choose our technology last based on all of those things. So instead of saying, hey, we want to use Twitter, we're going to say, well, here's our audience. Here's what we're trying to achieve. Here's how we're going to frame the message. Now, when, where, and how are we going to best engage those people to meet our objectives? So this is where you say, you know what? Yeah, Twitter probably doesn't make the most sense to reach those backyard gardeners. We might be looking at Facebook, or we might be looking at conducting a webinar. And if you're trying to teach something during growing season to a group of farmers, when are you going to reach them, right? You're probably not going to have like a Monday at 10 a.m. program. You might be looking at doing something like late in the evening when they're out of the field. So just some things to think about. And then also thinking about how you might frame that message in a positive way versus a negative way. So let me just share a quick example. So if we're looking at positive framing, you're looking at the sort of the benefit. So if you change this behavior around, let's go with the pesticide safety suggestion. If you change this behavior, here's how it's going to be positive, right? So for some people, and we could really start to break this down, which I will, because I think it'll help provide that example and help reinforce what it is that I'm trying to talk about. So let's say with pesticide safety, we are talking about backyard gardeners. Some of those backyard gardeners are going to care about the health of the environment. They're concerned about applying pesticides because that intellectual or emotional connection that attracts them to that topic is the health of the environment. Other people care about the health of the plants in their garden. So they want to apply pesticides because they want their flowers and the leaves in their garden to not be eaten, right? So those are two completely different ways of looking at pesticide safety. So if we're looking at positive framing for the people who are interested in environmental health, we might say, proper pesticide application, like part of the reason why you need to be reading the label, other than the fact that it's literally the law and the label is the law, if you apply the proper amount, you're going to be reducing the instance of maybe pesticide drift or, death of non-target organisms in your garden. That's the positive thing. You're going to be helping the environment. Or you could be talking about things like integrated pest management, in which case pesticides might not be necessary at all. So you're going to be helping things in your garden. Versus, let's take a look at the negative framing, which could be, if you don't properly apply pesticides to your garden, you could kill a lot of things that you don't intend to kill. Or if you over apply, you could be at risk, and this would probably be a greater concern to farmers. If you over apply or apply in windy conditions and your next door neighbor experiences drift because of your negligence in application, you could be facing legal ramifications. That's another interpretive theme. Some people care about pesticide safety because they want to make sure they're not going to get in trouble with the law. But that might not, hopefully that would concern everyone, but it might not be as concerning to some people as others. So environmental health would be a concern. Legal ramification would be another interpretive theme. We might have health of family. I will tell you a story that was shared with me during one of the pesticide in-services that I attended when I was an ANR educator, talked about how somebody stored pesticide, like they had extra pesticide that they poured into like a Coke bottle or a Coke can and then left it in like a storage shed. And I think it was one of their like grandkids went up and drank it thinking that it was Coke. And I can't remember what the resolution of that ended up being. I can't remember what happened, but I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like what a horrible, horrible situation. So safety of children could be another interpretive theme. So why does any of that matter? Because if you want people to engage with you on social media, and we all know that engagement on social media, let me just back up a second. Engagement on social media is such a difficult thing. When we talk about Facebook specifically, you can expect engagement from, usually what they say is anywhere from 2 to 5% of your page followers will even end up seeing your content in the first place. That's not even an engagement rate. That's just that's the rate of people who will even see your content show up in their newsfeed. And then from there, if your content is engaging enough, hopefully you will get pretty good engagement from that 2 to 5%. That's really, really minimal. And one of the things that I would encourage you to do for anybody who's managing a Facebook page, go onto your Facebook page, take a look at some of your most popular posts and maybe your least popular, maybe even do an average of like your last 10 or 20 social media posts, get an average, and then divide that by your total number of followers to see what your engagement rate looks like. I have a Facebook page that I manage for my conservation education and photography work, and I usually get 3 to 5% engagement on my posts, which is pretty good because if you consider only 2 to 5% of people are ever seeing my content anyway, that would imply that like 100% of those people are engaging with it. It's probably not as simple and straightforward as that. The other thing that I've done recently is I've gone to some of the most popular Facebook pages, the most followed Facebook pages on Facebook, Humans of New York being one of the huge ones. They have over 18 million page likes, which seems huge. And on any given post that they have, you might have anywhere from 100,000 to 200,000, some of the more popular ones, 250 to 300,000 reactions, which seems like a whole heck of a lot. But if you actually do the math on that, it's pretty dismal engagement, right? So I would encourage you to just play around with some of those like major brands and major content providers on Facebook and do the math. And what you'll see is that their engagement rates are actually pretty cruddy. And I've done this with some of our OSU extension Facebook pages. And in some cases, our engagement is pretty okay. And in other cases, it's pretty abysmal. So think about how you can message, how you can frame the messages of your social media content to get higher engagement. And I like to think about engagement on social media as sort of being this hybrid approach where don't think about social media as being the end all be all. Don't think about your face-to-face events as being the end all be all. Think about it in this hybrid strategy. So in other words, if somebody comes to a face-to-face program, how can you continue that engagement with them using platforms like social media, right? It's another avenue for them to continue interacting with you. And I like to think about this in two primary ways. One is product delivery or program delivery, which is basically the platforms that you're going to use to deliver content. And then you have that whole other scope of product development. So yes, you might know how to use Facebook and you might be using it. Like, you know exactly how to make a post and how to upload a video and, you know, how to create an advertisement if you're doing ads. But do you know how to create a video? Do you have the skills that it takes to create a really engaging video? Do you have the skills it takes to go out and take really awesome photographs or source really awesome stock photos and then create some sort of social media graphic? Do you have the design skills to create an infographic? These are sort of two completely different things, and both of them are really important when it comes to not just social media, but really all content delivery. Even if you're doing a webinar, we talk about death by PowerPoint all the time. Do you have the skills to develop a really high quality, well-designed PowerPoint presentation? Because those help with engagement as well. We don't want any more death by PowerPoint. So those are some just very like quick and dirty ideas for helping engage people on social media. I don't feel like I gave you any super tangible things other than a framework to use to help identify your audiences. And this framework I think could be really beneficial especially if you're working like on a team to like create a social media campaign around a very particular topic. So let's say you have like, you're working with the opioid epidemic or childhood obesity or like a very specific topic. How can you use that life framework to develop out this whole campaign where you've identified all of your different stakeholders, all of your different audience segments, and you've identified what messaging will attract each one of those particular audiences. It's important to recognize that your messaging could be different for every single stakeholder group. What I see a lot of on social media from my extension colleagues is everybody just creates one piece of content for very, very broad audiences. Nobody wants to really think about framing for a particular audience in mind. So that's what I would encourage you to do a little bit differently. So with that, I think we will open the rest of the few minutes that we have here for questions and allow us to have a little bit of conversation around audience engagement. So what do you have for me and Ryan? And again, for those of you who have mics connected, feel free to just unmute and you can chat with us. Thank you, Erin. I see a couple people said they had to go.
Hey, Danae.
Hi.
For providing this. Again, I've heard you talk about social media in particular a couple of times. It was really cool to hear from Ryan as well and, you know, learn about some different polling tools just for the good of the group. And I think you already know this, but it's been really interesting managing a Facebook account for an organization versus a personal account. And the more accounts that I've managed for larger organizations, the better I've gotten at it. So if anyone has an opportunity to volunteer or to use your professional skills elsewhere out in the world to manage other pages, it'll just make you better for it. So, you know, trying to hack the code of what's popular, what do people like. My dad manages our sheriff's office page in our county, and people love the dogs. People love the canines. So it's silly what people like. So, you know, trying to find someone else that is a big page manager and share with them back and forth what works in your local area is really helpful. At least I found it helpful. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, Kayla, because yeah, there's going to be certain types of content that just resonate with people, and people love animals in general. I think what I've seen from a lot of extension colleagues is everybody wants to be super serious about their social media account that they manage professionally. So they have this very like just serious interface. It's all branded. It looks great, which hopefully it should. But then like all of the content is just very like sterile, right? It's very like professional. It's not very, it doesn't show a sense of personality. And people love seeing genuine like stories and personalities. They love to see the people from behind the computer. So if it's appropriate, and of course, certain people find certain things appropriate and other things less appropriate. So you want to make sure you're being appropriate with whatever you share. But the other thing I'll mention here about social media too is, like I said, I manage a page for my education on bugs of all things. And for a long time, because I'm a photographer, everything that I was sharing there was just my own photography. And then once in a while, I would start to curate content from elsewhere. So I would like post a funny meme or a link, and people loved it. Like that content was getting so much more engagement than the stuff that I was creating, which of course makes you feel kind of sad because you're like, oh, people hate my stuff, but they love this other stuff. However, what I've learned over time is I've gotten really good at balancing content creation and content curation, and I'm getting more engagement, which is what I want. And while I still care about page follows and page likes, what I care more about is my rate of engagement. And anything that I can do to increase engagement is going to be awesome. And by increasing the engagement on my non-created posts, the posts that I was curating, I have just organically increased engagement on my stuff, which is great. So now I'm getting great engagement on my created content and my photography, as well as great engagement on this whole like narrative that I've been able to provide. So Ryan, it looks like you might have something to say, or no? You look like you
Just
were
answering your question.
Okay. So any other questions about anything that we've covered here? Polling tools, Zoom, social media is like an area that's just near and dear to me. I could talk about it all day long because I love it. And it's Facebook has such a bad reputation, especially now in like the whole political scope. So a lot of people are like, how can you justify teaching about Facebook when they're in such hot water? I've created a whole wonderful community for myself on Facebook, and I can't imagine where I would be without that community. So it's hard for me to just be like, yeah, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna show them, because I would be giving up a huge part of what I've built over the last 10 years. So data security of Facebook. Dina, do you want to talk a little bit more specifically about what you mean by data security? Like, is there something in particular you're thinking?
Yeah, right. So, the lawsuits and how they're selling our user data to companies, all that kind of stuff. I'm with you, right? I love
Yeah.
Facebook because I've connected with cousins in Brazil I didn't have, and I wouldn't be able to do that without it. But wow, I really think twice about putting much on it anymore, knowing it's really, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it's as secure as we had all hoped it was, and they seem to be, they're a business, right? So
Right.
their bottom line is making a lot of money.
They
Maybe
are.
this is just what I'm hearing in the media, but yeah, I just don't know. And then
Yeah.
as I hear you talking about, if you only have 2 to 5% of your followers engaging, so why? Okay, I mean, you're making me think here. Why do we invest university resources into it, or is that just one piece of our overall public awareness? You've got my brain cells going.
Yeah, no,
Anyway.
and super, super good points that you bring up, Dina. In terms of the low rates of engagement, for me, it's like I wouldn't be reaching these people at all if not for Facebook. So even though my rates of engagement are low, I'm reaching hundreds and in some cases thousands more people than I would reach in any other delivery platform, and I'm reaching them on a daily basis, sometimes 3 times a day, instead of reaching them once a month during a face-to-face event. So it's really about that balance and making sure you're not putting all eggs in one basket, so to speak, and you're not just investing all of your time in this one platform. Data security, again, it's a personal thing. I will say OSU is coming out with some guidelines on social media use. So of course, this doesn't really cover our Purdue folks, but OSU will be putting in some more strict policies and procedures on social media use, which will help protect the sort of the OSU brand and how it's used and displayed on social media. So that will be forthcoming, so I'm told. And Amy made a really good point. Amy Comedger said, it's definitely not appropriate to require your stakeholders to only use Facebook, right? So like I said, it's important that it's part of a bigger strategy, and that it's not just used as like, if you want to, and I've had people before say like, we're only using Facebook to announce XYZ. Probably not the most appropriate avenue to take. It's probably important to have other avenues where people can reach you and get information.
And I guess too, Janae, not to make this go on forever, but my data security question is like for an individual user.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe my personal case is a little bit unique in that my husband was broke into on the Equifax, issue, and in 1 week we both got letters saying our data had been, my social security number was on a laptop that was stolen from another organization. He had a medical bill that somebody hacked into their website. So I mean, it's that kind of, I kind of reluctantly use Facebook anymore, to be honest, because of that. But that's beyond Facebook, right? That's all of our digital kind of culture out there. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm unresolved on it.
Yeah, it's scary. And I tell people it's kind of just got to be a personal decision what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
For me, the benefit of using Facebook outweighs the cost. And I can say that because nothing bad has happened. So I'll continue to say that until something bad happens. And because I said that, something bad will happen. So you can check back after that. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, for me personally, the benefit outweighs the cost. I don't manage any OSU accounts though through any really social media account. I only speak on behalf of myself. If I were in a county and like reaching out to a ton of people, then I might think a little bit differently. So just, it kind of depends. I will say I'm going to wrap up and I'm going to hit end recording, but I think Ryan and I can stick on for a few more minutes if anybody wants to continue the conversation.
Thanks for coming, everyone.